And my husband called me a useless fatso at the lunch table, and I just smiled, finished eating, and the next day replaced all the horseshoes in the house. You're so useless that you're not even good at gaining weight. You look like a flat mattress. The phrase fell like a spit onto the table violently before the wide-eyed children of 3 who pretended not to have heard. Julian didn't even look at her as he said it. He chewed bread as if nothing had happened. His cell phone vibrated beside his plate as he listlessly sipped his soup. That comment wasn't new, but it carried a different weight, because this time there was no laughter, no mockery, no playful tone, only pure, cold, chemically calculated contempt. Mariana was 38 years old. She had been a woman full of light, with a wide smile and restless hands who had once dreamed of owning a bakery. Today, she was a shadow in an apron, a human clock that cooked, cleaned, kept quiet, and cared. And her hair was tied back with an old hair tie, and her back was beginning to slouch, not from age, but from the weight of silence. That midday, Mariana took a deep breath. She didn't say anything, didn't raise her voice, didn't defend herself, just ran the knife through the bread, buttered it, bit into it slowly, and pretended nothing hurt. No one said a word. Camila, 17, didn't look up from her cell phone. Tomas, 9, played with his spoon. Sophia, 6, stared at her as if she sensed something she didn't understand. "What's that face?" Julian asked, looking at Sophia. "You're also going to end up fat like your mother." Sophia lowered her head. Mariana could barely swallow her food, but she swallowed. Because in that house, crying at the table was synonymous with weakness, and she already had enough of that, according to Julian. In the kitchen, Mariana served dessert, rice pudding with cinnamon, everyone's favorite. Julian didn't even touch it, and she stood up, left her unfinished plate, and called from the living room, "Could you clean up quickly, please? I'll turn on the game." Not a thank you, not a "it was nice," just orders. Mariana cleared the table in silence. She carried the dishes to the sink, and she washed them one by one with hands numb from the cold water. She looked at the reflection of her face in the window above the awning. She didn't recognize herself anymore, or maybe she did, and that's why it hurt so much. Later, while folding clothes in her bedroom, she heard Camila arguing on the phone. Random words. "I told you not to call when I'm home. My mom is bitter. I don't want her to find out." Mariana didn't ask anything. Lately, Camila had spoken to her as if she were a stranger, cold and cutting. Julian used to say it was normal, that teenage girls hated their mothers for a while, but Mariana knew this disdain wasn't natural. It was learned and stemmed from the male figure who ruled the house. At 10 p.m., when everyone was asleep, Mariana sat up in bed and checked her phone. There were no messages, no calls, and no one waiting to find out how she was. Her world had shrunk so much it fit within the 4 walls of that soulless room. She opened Facebook and saw a post from her former college classmate, now a successful chef. He was traveling the world. He owned a bakery in Barcelona. Mariana felt a hollow in her chest. She had wanted that too. But then Julian came along. Then he came. "You take care of the house. I'll work." Followed by years of small sacrifices that eventually turned into total surrender. She got up and went into Tomas's room. The boy was sleeping with his mouth half open, cuddling an old doll. Mariana kissed him on the forehead. Then she went to Sophia's room and stroked her hair. Camila slept on her back, headphones in, as if she didn't want to hear the world. Mariana sat on the floor in the dark hallway and cried. And it wasn't a loud cry. It was a quiet, slow cry, like when a dam bursts from the inside, but without anyone noticing. At dawn, she dressed in silence, grabbed her house keys, and walked 2 blocks to the hardware store. She bought new locks and asked for them to be delivered quickly. She returned before the children woke up, closed the door, took a deep breath, and called Elias, her neighbor across the street, a deep-voiced widower who had always been kind to her. "Do you know how to change locks?" he asked bluntly. Elias looked at her intently. She nodded. "Is everything okay, Mariana? Or is it going to be?" She replied in a voice that didn't sound like her own. By 9 o'clock a.m., she'd replaced the front door. By 11 o'clock a.m., the gate. By 12 o'clock a.m., the back door. Each blow of the screwdriver was a way of disempowering the man who called her a useless fatso. Each tightened screw was a declaration of war. At 4:00 p.m., Julian came home from the gym. He tried to open the door. Nothing. He tried again, pushed, knocked. "Mariana, what's going on? Open the door." From inside, Mariana was looking at him through the window. Her hair was tied back, her face clean, and her expression neutral. In one hand, she held a folded note. "Mariana, I'm serious. What is this? Are you crazy?" Mariana opened the window, not all the way, just enough for her voice to come out. "You don't live here anymore." "What do you mean I don't live here? This is my house?" "Not anymore." "What did you do with my things?" "I sent them to the office." "You're sick, and this isn't going to stay like this." She didn't answer. She closed the window, lowered the curtain. Silence. Julian shouted, threatened. He kicked the bars. The neighbors came out to look. Mariana didn't move. Tomas asked from the hallway, "Mom, are you coming in?" "No, my love, not today." "Why is she screaming like that?" "Because she doesn't know how to lose." Sophia hugged her waist. Camilla didn't come out from her room, but she listened. She listened to everything. When Julian got tired of screaming, he left. Mariana went out to the patio, put on some soft music, and sat down to drink some tea. She breathed. For the first time in years, she truly breathed. Later, she placed the note on the fence, held in place with a clothespin. "Make it clear. Make it obvious. I didn't leave. You left the day you killed the last part of me." Then she closed the door, locked it, and went to sleep. For the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully. And the next morning, the clock read 6:40 when Mariana opened her eyes. There was no shock or fear, nor that usual tension in the neck that anticipated the rhythm of a new day, governed by another's will. Only the distant crowing of a rooster, the serene silence of a calm house, and a light breeze coming through the half-open window. She was alone in her room, her soul still wounded but standing. Finally on her feet, she sat up in bed. She felt the soles of her feet touch the cold floor. Something had changed inside her, even though the walls remained the same. She walked to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. This time she wasn't rushing it, nor was she afraid that Julian would complain about the temperature of the food or the amount of salt in the rice. And it was the first morning when cooking was a personal decision. At 7:30, the children began to emerge from their rooms. Tomas was the first to appear. His hair was disheveled and his eyes puffy with sleep. Mariana greeted him with a kiss on the forehead. Then came Sophia, dragging her blanket with her stuffed animal wrapped around her neck. Mariana bent down, hugged her tightly, and whispered in her ear, "Today will be a good day, my love. You'll see." Camilla left last. She didn't even look at her mother. She had her headphones on, a backpack slung over her shoulder, and the same icy look that had settled on her face since Mariana had changed the horseshoes. He didn't say good morning, just mumbled that he didn't want breakfast and went out to the patio to check his phone. Mariana didn't insist, and she knew the real fight was just beginning. That same morning, Julian returned with a more polished expression than the day before. He was wearing a white shirt, shiny shoes, and carrying a briefcase under his arm. He stood in front of the house as if he were the owner of a business that had been taken over by squatters. He rang the doorbell insistently. Mariana watched from the window, her heart pounding. "He didn't answer, Mariana," he said in a firm, modulated voice, as if speaking from a stage. "Oh, I just want to talk. Are you going to do this in front of the children? Do you want to drag this into legal proceedings?" Elias appeared behind him from his garden. He crossed his arms. He watched silently, as if making sure nothing got out of hand. "You have no right to be here, Julian," Mariana said from inside without opening the door. "This house is in my name. Had you left this family years ago, only now I know it too. Are you playing with fire? Because I know how to put it out," he said, still smiling with that snake-like smile he had used so many times to convince, to manipulate, to destroy. "You taught me how to burn," Mariana replied. Julian left, but not without leaving a threat in the air. "We'll see each other soon, in a court of law, if necessary." Mariana knew then that she had broken a chain, but the war had just begun. That night, Camilla exploded. "You're ridiculous," she cried, tears in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why did you kick him out? He's my dad. I didn't kick him out, Mariana replied, her voice breaking. I just stayed. It's a lie. You always make things more difficult. You provoked him. If you weren't so cold, so bitter, he wouldn't be like this. Mariana swallowed. And the blow wasn't physical, but it hurt like one. She wanted to explain, to tell him how much she'd endured, how many times she'd cried silently so no one would notice, but she held back. She didn't want to turn that house into a battleground between mother and daughter. I don't want to fight with you, she finally said, but I want you to learn something, Camila. Love should never hurt. Camila locked herself in her room. Mariana stood in the living room staring at the wall. Tomas approached with timid steps and sat next to her. Mom, Dad's coming back. Mariana looked at him. She stroked his face. No, not anymore. Then he won't yell at you ever again. The boy smiled as if that was the answer he wanted to hear. The next day, Mariana attended a support group for abused women for the first time. And she entered with shame, as if confessing a guilt that wasn't hers. There were a dozen women. Some wept silently. Others spoke with suppressed rage. A woman with a scarred face explained how she survived the final push before falling down the stairs. Another, young and holding a baby, recounted how her partner hid contraceptives to tie her down with more children. Mariana spoke little, only mentioning her name, and that she had just taken her husband out of the house. The psychologist, a petite woman with a sharp gaze, observed her closely. Pain doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it only leaves silence, she said. But silences also kill. Those words stuck with her. Upon her return, she found a legal notice in the mailbox. Julian had filed a lawsuit for violation of family rights and wrongful detention of property. And he also requested visitation rights for the children and immediate access to the house. Mariana tore the paper into 4 pieces. She took a deep breath. She knew she had to prepare for what was coming. As night fell, Julian called. Not her, but Tomas. And the boy answered excitedly, but after 2 minutes his eyes began to fill with tears. Don't tell me that, Dad. Mom isn't mean. Mariana ran over, took the phone from him, and hung up. And the boy burst into tears and said, You're going to take me out of school, that you won't be able to pay for it, that we'll be living on the streets. Mariana hugged him tightly. None of that is going to happen. You just have to study and be happy. I'll take care of the rest. Julian's attacks began to come from all sides. He sent emails to the children's teachers, accusing Mariana of being unbalanced. He posted innuendos on social media. He sent messages to neighbors, feigning concern. Or, I'm sorry for the children, he wrote. With a mother like that, they're headed for failure. Some neighbors stopped greeting her. Others secretly offered support, also fearing their own husbands. The street was divided, but Mariana no longer bowed down to the opinions of others or the threat of poverty. One night, while cleaning the kitchen, she saw Julian's phone on the cupboard. He had forgotten it weeks ago on one of his visits before they had completely distanced themselves. Mariana hesitated for a few seconds, but turned it on. It didn't have a password, and she checked the messages, calls, and pictures. Her heart skipped a beat. There were photos of Julian with another woman, younger, with a bald head, a wide smile, embracing on a beach. In another image, she was holding an ultrasound. Voicemails. Honey, the baby is doing well. I wish you could come today. Sometimes I feel like you're far away. Don't tell your wife yet. Those divorce proceedings take time. The important thing is that we'll be together soon. Mariana dropped the phone, her hands raised to her mouth, her legs shaking. And it wasn't just the emotional abandonment. It was a complete betrayal of body and soul. Julian hadn't just destroyed her. He'd also started another life, a more perfect lie, with another woman who perhaps didn't even know he had an entire family in another city. As she felt rage, not the fury that screams, but the cold rage that freezes inside. Camilla entered the kitchen and saw her trembling. What's wrong? Mariana just looked at her, said nothing, wanted to hug her, tell her the truth, but the teenager avoided her and went to get some water without saying a word. And at midnight, Mariana took her cell phone, opened her email, and wrote a message to the lawyer one of the women in the support group had recommended. The subject line read, I'm ready. She turned off the light. She went to sleep, but sleep was a minefield. At 3 a.m., the phone vibrated. An unknown number. She answered with a hoarse voice, hoping it was an emergency at the hospital or school. On the other end, a young, tense female voice. "You are Julian Mendez's wife." Mariana felt her heart pound in her chest. "Who's speaking?" There was a brief, fearful silence, because I think I am too. The voice on the other end of the phone was shaky, as if it were about to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Mariana felt her heart leap into her throat, tightening, and looked at the clock on the nightstand. 3:07 a.m. She quietly got out of bed, went out into the hallway, crossed the darkened dining room, and locked herself in the kitchen. She sat down slowly next to the refrigerator, still holding the phone to her ear. "What did you say?" she asked, although she'd already understood. "My name is Valeria. I'm good. I thought I was Julian's partner. We've been together for 1.5 years. He told me he'd been divorced for a while, but I found messages, photos, and then I saw you in an old photo on his profile with the kids." Mariana closed her eyes. "How did you get my number?" "And on a hotel receipt. He forgot about it. I saw his name. I looked it up on social media. I saw there was an address in an old post. I looked it up on the census. I'm not crazy, I swear. I just need to know if all this is real." "I'm an idiot." "Yes." The voice cracked. Mariana heard the sounds. She could imagine her. On the other end of the line, in the darkness, also sitting against a wall, feeling the same way she had felt for years. Used, deceived, manipulated by the same man who had sold them dreams while burying truths. "Are you pregnant?" Mariana asked. "Yes, I'm 4 months along. And she told me we were going to live together, that she was looking for a house for us. She made me sign some papers. I didn't know anything." Mariana gritted her teeth. The silence stretched like a rope about to snap. "We can see each other," Valeria said almost in a whisper. Mariana hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but without him knowing. Tomorrow at 5, in front of San Diego Park. There's a discreet cafe right on the corner." "I'll be there." He hung up. Mariana stared into space. She felt a pang in her chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't jealousy. It was an older pain, the kind that comes when one woman recognizes the same wounds in another. Because the worst part wasn't that Julian had cheated on another woman. The worst part was that he'd done it using the same words, the same promises, the same formula, as if they were interchangeable pieces in his world. At 5:00 p.m., Mariana arrived at the cafe. She wore her hair down, worn jeans, and a black blouse. At the corner table, a thin woman of about 26, with a pale face and deep dark circles under her eyes, stood up when she saw her. "Mariana, yes." They sat down. Awkwardness filled the air. The waiter approached, but neither of them ordered anything. Valeria opened her bag and took out an ultrasound. "It's from 2 weeks ago," she said. "It's a girl." Mariana looked at the image. She felt a knot in her stomach. Not because of the baby, but because of what it implied. Julian had created a new family while her own was falling apart. "I don't want to hurt him," Valeria said. "I just need to know if he did the same to you." Mariana lowered her gaze. "Did he ask you to quit your job?" "Yes." "Did he convince you that your friends were jealous of you?" "Yes." "He tells you that you're dramatic, that you exaggerate all the time." "So, yes, he did." Valeria began to cry. Mariana felt her chest soften. She took her hand slowly. There was no hatred. There was compassion. 2 women sitting face to face, united by the same executioner disguised as a charming man. "You know the worst part?" And Mariana said that a part of you, deep inside, always knew it, but you cling to what she promised, to how she made you feel in the beginning, and you think you can get it back, that if you do everything right, it'll be like that again. But that never existed. Valeria nodded, her eyes moist. "Did he ever hit you?" "And not with his hands," Mariana replied, "but he made me bleed inside for years." At that moment, Mariana understood that the bravest thing she could do was not only report him, but also rebuild herself and help others do so. When she returned home, she found Tomas on the couch with a fever. She carried him to his room and placed a wet cloth on his forehead. At midnight, he heard a strange noise. He went to his room. The boy was pale. He was bleeding from his nose. Tomas shouted, shaking him. "My love, wake up!" Elias ran from his house when he heard the screams. Mariana came out with the boy wrapped in a blanket. "Please take me to the hospital." Elias didn't ask. He opened his car door, and they flew through the streets. In the emergency room, the doctor immediately ordered tests. She'd only bled once before, weeks ago, but I thought it was due to the heat. After 5 hours of unbearable tension, the doctor returned with a serious expression. "There's an abnormality in her white blood cells. We need to run more in-depth tests. It could be leukemia." Mariana felt the ground give way beneath her feet. The world spun. Tomas was sleeping, hooked up to an IV. She clung to his hand as if it were keeping him alive. "I don't have insurance," Mariana said softly. "I don't have any money." The doctor looked at her compassionately. "We're going to refer him to a specialized unit. There's a foundation that can help with some of the treatment, but we need to act quickly." Mariana called Camilla and explained everything. The girl didn't answer immediately. After a few seconds, she said, "And my dad?" "No, we're not going to call him yet." "No. Why?" "Because he's not coming to save us." "I am." She hung up. Mariana spent the night in a chair next to the boy's bed. She trembled, crying soundlessly. Julian called 2 days later, screaming furiously into the phone. "You've gone crazy! How could you have hidden something like that? What is my son? Yours when it suits you, mine when he's suffering. I'm going to fight for full custody, Mariana. You're not capable of taking care of a dog. You have no money. You have nothing. I have dignity, and you lost that a long time ago." He hung up. Valeria called her again. She wanted to report him, too. She'd discovered that the papers she signed were financial documents, not leases, as he'd told her. Julian had used her identity to create a shell company. Mariana made an appointment with a lawyer. She wanted to stop living in fear. She needed to protect her children. Meanwhile, Tomas's health was deteriorating. He needed a transfusion. Mariana begged the doctors. As she found a donor thanks to Elias, who used contacts in the military to speed up the process. Camilla came into the room one night crying. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know all this was killing you inside. I was unfair to you." Mariana hugged her without saying a word, and she didn't need any explanations, just the hug. The following week, Mariana returned to the hospital with the full results. They confirmed leukemia. The treatment was long, expensive, and invasive, but there was hope. That night, back home, Mariana locked herself in the bathroom. And she sat on the floor clutching her son's toothbrush, the small one with the blue handle he used every night before bed. She held it in both hands as if it were a talisman. "God, if you're going to take anything else from me, don't let it be him. Don't take him away." No, not now after all this. Silence was her only response. And in that silence, Mariana decided she wouldn't give up even if she had to break the bones of her soul, even if the world were against her. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone, and she wasn't afraid. Mariana stayed on this bathroom floor until dawn began to break. Her eyes were swollen, her face marked by dried tears, but something inside her was beating strongly. It wasn't hope yet, but it was will, a new will forged in the fire of every emotional blow she had silently endured. And she stood up, washed her face, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't wonder who that woman was. She knew. She was a mother, and that was enough. That same morning, she returned to the hospital with Tomas, and the doctors confirmed the diagnosis: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Mariana felt the air thicken, every word distorted as if she were floating underwater. They needed to start treatment as soon as possible: chemotherapy, constant tests, prolonged hospitalizations. The oncologist was clear. The process would be long, painful, and expensive. She had no health insurance, nor a steady income. "Is there a foundation that can help us?" Mariana asked in a small voice. The doctor nodded. "There's a waiting list. We could try to expedite admission through social services, but we require several documents, and even then the most expensive drug, cyclophosphamide, must be purchased outside the country, and it's not cheap." Mariana came out with the papers in her hand. Tomas was asleep in her arms. And in the waiting room, Elias was standing there waiting for her, his face worried. What did they say? She didn't reply. She just walked straight up to him, rested her forehead on his chest, and let go of all her weight. Elias held her silently, without asking any questions. And in his arms, Mariana felt for the first time a refuge that didn't come with conditions. "I'm going to help you," he said gently. "Oh no," Mariana replied, raising her head. "Thank you, but I'm fighting this battle with my own hands." Elias lowered his gaze, and he knew that insisting would be disrespectful of her decision. Back home, Mariana sat in front of the old notebook where she wrote down recipes. She reviewed everything she knew how to cook, the old-fashioned home-cooked food, stews, tamales, empanadas, cakes, puddings, and she decided to start ordering lunches the next day. She put a sign on the fence, "Home-cooked meals for sale, fair prices, made with love." She didn't sleep that night. She cooked until 3:00 a.m., carefully packing each portion. By 7:00 a.m., she had her first sales. 3 neighbors, 2 employees from the nearby bank, and an elderly woman who had lost her appetite for fast food. Every coin was one step closer to Tomas's treatment. The days passed with the rhythm of an invisible war. Cooking in the early mornings, hospital in the mornings, homework in the afternoons. Mariana no longer allowed herself to fall until a call changed everything. It was Julian. "Mariana," he said in a calm voice, "they told me the boy is in bad shape. Look, I don't want this to get any harder than it already is. I have the money, I can pay for the full treatment. And in exchange for what? Silence. You know what I mean? You let me come home. We're living together for the sake of the kids. We don't have to pretend everything's okay, just maintain structure." Mariana pressed the phone. "Structure. This isn't a business. It's a family. And you broke it. Are you going to let pride stop you from saving your son?" "I'm going to save my son without having to sell my soul. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Julian." "Don't be silly, Mariana. You won't make it alone. You don't have the resources. You can't even afford a consultation without help. You underestimated me your whole life, and that was your biggest mistake." He hung up without giving her a chance to respond. The next day, a social worker showed up at her home. "Mrs. Mariana Ramirez, we received an anonymous complaint alleging medical neglect of her son. We need to verify the living conditions." Mariana let her in, and she showed her every nook and cranny, every prescription, every receipt for medicine, every can of packaged food she sold. The woman took notes. Finally, he looked at Mariana with respect. It's not common to see such sacrifice, but the accusation was clear. "Someone wants to hurt him, ma'am." "I know who it was," Mariana replied. Julian's dirty campaigns didn't stop there. He posted a message on social media disguised as concern. "I ask for prayers for my son. Unfortunately, her mother refuses to accept help. A mother's mental health is also important." The comments were quick to arrive. Some supported Mariana, others were influenced by Julian's manipulated discourse. Mariana didn't respond. Silence was her shield and sword, but the damage was done. A week later, Camilla returned home with swollen eyes. Mariana was waiting for her with dinner served, and the teenager sat down without saying a word. She ate barely 2 spoonfuls. "I'm pregnant," she said suddenly. Mariana looked at her without moving. "Who's the father?" "My math teacher. He's married. He has a 5-year-old son. He promised me he was going to separate, that he loved me." Mariana put her spoon on the table, stood up slowly, walked over to her daughter, and hugged her. "We're not going to repeat history, Camila. We're going to face this together." Camila began to cry hard. Mariana held her without judgment, only pain, and she knew what it was like to surrender to the love of a man who was never really there. That night, Mariana didn't sleep. Her mind spun like a broken fan. Her son with leukemia, her daughter pregnant by a married man, her ex-husband trying to sink her with lies, her finances on the verge of collapse. And then the letter arrived. A court summons. Custody of Tomas. Julian had officially sued her. He claimed that Mariana was putting the child's health at risk by refusing to accept financial support. He was asking for temporary custody while he financed private treatment. And he had as a witness a judge friend known for his corrupt decisions. Elias accompanied her to the hearing. Mariana's lawyer argued that it was all part of an intimidation strategy, and she presented evidence, receipts, diagnoses, photos of the home, and testimonials from the foundation that supported the treatment. But the judge, with a dry expression and an indifferent tone, ordered an immediate visit to evaluate the feasibility of changing custody. Mariana couldn't believe it. It was like reliving a nightmare he hadn't chosen. The next day, Julian arrived at the house with 2 police officers and a document signed by the judge. Camila opened the door. Mariana came out when she saw the movement. In Julian's hand, the document. In his eyes, anticipated victory. According to the order, Tomas must stay with me while your emotional and financial capacity is evaluated. You're not going to take my son, Mariana said in a dry voice. You don't decide that. The law does. You use the law as another of your toys, but not this time. The police officers moved forward. One of them, uncomfortable, told Mariana that they had to comply with the order. And then Tomas came out of his room. He was wearing his hospital gown. There were deep dark circles under his eyes, his face pale. He walked unsteadily. What's wrong, Mom? It's no big deal, my love. Lie back down. But before he could, his legs gave way. He collapsed on the floor. His head hit the wood with a loud thud. Mariana screamed. Camila ran. Elias threw himself to the floor. Tomas! Tomas! Answer me! The boy didn't react. Mariana took him in her arms, wrapped in tears. The police officers stood motionless. Julian stepped back, not knowing what to do. Take us to the hospital, Mariana shouted now. And then in that instant, the judge, the money, the custody, or the past didn't matter. Just that boy in his mother's arms, collapsed by an illness that waited for no legal time, no speeches, no ego battles. Mariana got into the car with her son. Elias drove, and Julian stood there in the middle of the street, unsure if what was collapsing was his son's body or the last shred of control he had left. The drive to the hospital was endless. Every stoplight was an enemy, every curve a threat. Tomas didn't react. His weak body seemed to give way with every passing second. Mariana held his hand, speaking to him as if her words could keep him awake, as if her voice were the rope keeping him from falling into the abyss. My love, we're almost there. Don't fall asleep. Mom is here. Elias pressed the accelerator with white knuckles. She had never seen him so upset. Mariana glanced at him briefly and thought that rarely had anyone done so much for her without asking for anything in return. When they arrived at the emergency room, the nurse immediately took the child. Mariana tried to follow them, but they stopped her. She couldn't go in. She could only wait. They placed her in a plastic chair next to the coffee machine. The cold lights of the hospital enveloped her. The murmurs of other patients mingled with the distant beeps of heart monitors. And the world seemed small to her, a narrow, icy corridor where life was negotiated minute by minute. Elias sat beside her without saying anything. He took her hand. She didn't let go. A doctor came out an hour later. Serious face, clean gowns, neutral voice. She had a severe anemia crisis. She's very weak. We had to induce a coma to stabilize her vital signs. We're going to run more tests. She's already in intensive care. Mariana felt her skin being ripped away. She wanted to scream, but not a syllable came out. Can I see him? Just for 5 minutes. Don't touch him. Just watch him. They took her to the intensive care unit. Tomas looked like a porcelain child, fragile, too white. Tubes were sticking out of his nose. The respirator sounded with a cruel alien rhythm, as if it were breathing for him, without understanding who he was. Mariana stood by the bed. She didn't cry. She didn't want Tomas to feel sad, even if he wasn't conscious. Don't go. No, you still have to go home. You have to run again. The nurse took her out 5 minutes later. Mariana returned to the waiting room. She sat down. She didn't say anything. Elias handed her a coffee. She held it without drinking it. Camila arrived 3 hours later, disheveled, her eyes red. She threw herself into her mother's arms. Is he alive? Yes, but in very serious condition. Camila stayed there, hugging her. For the first time in months, there was no distance left. Just 2 women, worn out by life, holding each other in the midst of the disaster. 3 days passed without Tomas waking up. Mariana didn't move from the hospital. She slept sitting up. She ate only when someone insisted. She had given up selling food, the trial, everything. Only Tomas existed. The medical bills piled up. Mariana was afraid to open the envelopes. She knew the debt was growing by the hour. Valeria showed up on the 4th day. She was holding a folder and her eyes steady. "I'm coming from court. I just filed the complaint against Julian." Mariana looked at her in surprise. "Are you sure? He used me to launder money. I discovered documents signed with my name. I have a lawyer friend. He helped me record everything, and here's a copy of the statement. I'm also asking for the paternity acknowledgement to be annulled. I don't want my daughter to have his last name." Mariana hugged her. It was a hug of closure, of shared strength. "And the baby is fine, but I don't want to be another deceived mother. My daughter is going to know the truth." From the first day, Elias came in with news. His eyes lit up. "I arranged a meeting with the director of the Respiro Foundation. They help families with sick children. They ask for a lot of documentation, but they have a comprehensive support program. If we get in, they could cover up to 70% of the treatment." Mariana looked at him as if he had saved her life, because he had. Camila offered to take charge of gathering the paperwork. For the first time, she was decisively taking charge. He went back and forth between offices, made calls and filled out forms. And the corrupt judge who had issued the order to remove Tomas was dismissed that same week. An anonymous journalist leaked an audio recording in which he was heard negotiating favors with Julian. Elias had recorded it without anyone's knowledge. Mariana, upon hearing the recording, looked at him with eyes of surprise and gratitude. "I did it for Tomas and for you." Mariana didn't know what to say. Sometimes gratitude is so great it can't be expressed in words. Days later, the police arrested Julian for tax evasion. They found forged documents, fictitious companies, and evidence of fraud. Valeria's complaint was the final straw. He was led away in handcuffs from his office. Mariana watched the television images in silence. She didn't celebrate. She wasn't happy. And she just felt that the truth was finally beginning to emerge. The next night, Camila went into the bathroom with severe abdominal pain. She screamed from inside. Mariana ran. When he opened the door, he found her on the floor with blood between her legs. He carried her to the hospital in his arms. There, amid white lights and stained sheets, the doctors confirmed the miscarriage. Camila didn't cry at first. She was in the hospital. Then, when they moved her to a ward, she hugged her mother and burst into tears. "I lost him, Mom. I lost him. And I don't even know if I wanted him, but he was already mine." Mariana held her tight, stroked her hair. "Sometimes life takes away before its time, but that doesn't erase what you felt. You are valuable. You understand that, right?" Camila nodded, her eyes swollen. Mariana couldn't sleep that night, and she was torn between Tomas and Camila, 2 children on the edge of 2 different abysses. She sat in the waiting room, where silence was a constant. That place seemed designed to oppress the soul. She looked at the ceiling, then at her hands, then at the photo on her phone. Tomas, his face painted, standing in the garden, laughing and waving. "Please come back," she said softly. "Don't go." At dawn, Mariana went to see Tomas. The nurse let her in a little longer. She sat down next to the bed, gently took her hand, and whispered in her ear. "We're waiting for you. Everything's falling into place now. There are no more monsters, my love. We just need you to come back." And then Tomas moved his fingers slightly, but they moved. Mariana held her breath. "Tomas, can you hear me?" The boy opened his eyes slowly. He was disoriented. He looked at his mother, then at the ceiling, then back at her. "Mommy." Mariana broke down. "Here I am. I love you. You're going to be okay. You're going to run again, my love." Mommy gives up. The nurse called the doctor. Mariana didn't let go of her hand for a second. In the waiting room, Elias smiled. Valeria cried silently. Camila hugged him. For the first time, the family felt whole, not perfect, but alive. Anna, united not by what they had lost, but by what they dared to save. And the news that Tomas had woken up spread like a sigh through the hospital corridors. The nurses celebrated with smiles. The emotionless oncologist let out a gesture bordering on relief, and Mariana simply cried, not caring if anyone saw her, as she no longer had the strength to pretend or need to. Her son was breathing on his own. That was enough. Over the following weeks, Thomas slowly responded to the treatment. The side effects were brutal: constant nausea, hair loss, repeated infections. But he endured, and so did Mariana. And she slept in a metal chair, ate when Elias reminded her to, and wrote everything down in a blue notebook. Symptoms, dates, emotions. That notebook became a kind of diary, albeit unintentionally, a seed of something much bigger. It was Camila who discovered it one night while her mother was showering, and she read the pages carefully, as if spying on another woman's life. Mariana had written things she had never said out loud: fears, confessions, memories. Today, Tomas vomited 4 times. I wanted to cry, but I didn't tell myself, only out of habit. The woman I once was, the one who dreamed of opening her bakery, sits with me at night. She asks me if I'm alive or just resisting. Camilla closed the notebook and held it to her chest. It was then that she understood everything. Her mother hadn't been weak. She had been brave in a war that no one applauded. Mariana returned and found her crying silently. Camilla didn't try to hide it. "You should share this," she said, her voice breaking. "You can't keep all this pain to yourself. It can help others." Mariana looked at her, her hair damp and her face tired. "Do you believe it?" "I'm sure of it. This isn't just your story. It's that of many." That night, Mariana created an anonymous blog, as she titled it, "Letters to the Woman I Once Was." She published her first post at 3 a.m. She wrote it from the hospital ward next to Tomas's bed. It was a letter to herself, to the Mariana of 10 years ago, the one who believed she was guilty, who choked back tears, who thought love was something to be desired. The post went viral in less than a week. Dozens of women began leaving comments, some anonymously, others with their first and last names. They told their stories, their abuse, their silences. Mariana answered each message at night while Tomas was asleep. She never said who she was, only signing herself M. Valeria read the blog and cried, You are healing women from a hospital room. Do you realize?" Mariana didn't respond. She just kept writing. Seeing the impact, Mariana and Valeria decided to go further. Together, they organized the first meeting of women survivors of emotional violence. They held it at a neighborhood library without microphones or cameras. More than 30 women arrived. One brought her teenage daughter. Another, with a broken voice, read a poem. A 70-year-old grandmother confessed that she had lived with a man who called her a burden for 45 years. Mariana stood before them all. She didn't speak like a leader. She spoke like a wounded person. They took our voice, but not our memory. And from there, from memory, we will build. We don't want revenge. We want emotional freedom. That day, the network Women Who Are No Longer Silent was born. They began with weekly meetings, then added legal advice, psychological support, and a solidarity fund. Each woman who left a violent situation left a letter for the next. It was a legacy of survival. Meanwhile, life at home took on new colors. Sophia turned 7, and she made a model for school titled My Heroine. It was a drawing of her mother wearing an apron, a cape, and a kitchen spoon as a sword. Mariana cried in front of the entire class when Sophia gave her speech. My mom is brave because she didn't leave, because she stayed to fight for us, because even if no one listens, she doesn't shut up." The teacher wiped away her tears. Some parents applauded. That same month, Camila announced that she wanted to study law. Her decision was firm. "I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to defend women like you, Mom, those who don't have a voice, those who are afraid to speak out." Mariana hugged her. She didn't need any more proof that she was doing well. Tomas continued with treatment. There were good days, others not so good, but he smiled. Every time he played with his sister, every time Elias visited with a new toy, his hair was gone, but his laughter remained intact. Elias became part of the home, no longer as a neighbor, but as a companion, a discreet man who never invaded, but was always there. And one night, while they were washing dishes, Mariana asked him, "Are you also healing something with me?" He looked at her tenderly. I too lived in silence. I lost my wife 3 years ago. Not because of illness, but because of my coldness. I let her go without fighting for her. When I saw you fighting for your son, you reminded me of everything I didn't do in time. They remained silent. The water kept running. Mariana took his hand, this time without fear. For the first time, she loved without needing to save anyone. Julian's trial was long. 3 months of evidence, testimony, and documents. Mariana and Valeria testified together. It was painful to relive it all. The forged letters, the falsified contracts, the threats, the double life. Julian defended himself arrogantly. He claimed he was the victim of a conspiracy, that Mariana only wanted to ruin his image, that Valeria had manipulated him, but the judges were no longer his friends and the evidence was relentless. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison for tax evasion, document forgery, and vicarious conduct. When they exposed him, Mariana didn't look at him. She stood tall. She no longer owed him anything, no fear, no explanation. As she left the courthouse, several women were waiting for her with flowers, others just applauded. It was her victory, but it was everyone's victory as well. Mariana returned home with a mixture of relief and sadness. She didn't celebrate, just lit a candle for all those who hadn't made it that day. Financially, food sales multiplied. Thanks to the blog and the women's group, Mariana began receiving orders from all over the country, and she created an online store with Camilla's help. Cook with a purpose, said the EMA. Each sale donated a percentage to the aid fund for women in situations of violence. One Saturday, Tomas turned 10. The family decided to celebrate in the garden. They set up balloons, homemade cakes, and board games. Friends from school came, as did neighbors who volunteered with the foundation. Mariana cooked everything herself. Valeria brought a superhero-shaped cake. Camilla decorated it with lights. Elias made a dragon-shaped piñata. Sophia was in charge of handing out the surprises. Tomas didn't stop laughing all afternoon. When night fell, when everyone had left, Mariana was left alone in the garden. She looked at the full moon. The sky was clear. She held a cup of tea in one hand and an old letter from her father in the other. That letter she had found years ago, just after his death. One line always came back to her. Never forget who you are, daughter. Life will try to make you believe it, but you are stronger than any lie. She looked up at the sky and whispered, Daddy, I did it, and I didn't let his story be mine. And for the first time in her life, the silence wasn't fear. It was peace, music, an emotional outpouring. 2 years passed. The calendar marked a new April with jacaranda trees blooming along the avenues and the sky clear as never before. Mariana woke up before everyone else, as usual, but no longer out of obligation or the invisible burden of serving. She got up by choice, walked barefoot to the kitchen, put water on, and while she waited for the kettle to whistle, she looked at the bookshelf in front of the table. And in the center, a white hardcover with blue letters bore her name, The Day I Stopped Being Silent, by Mariana Ramirez. It was published 3 months later. It was a raw testimony, yet full of tenderness. It didn't use real names, it didn't speak with hatred, nor did it attack anyone directly. And it was the voice of a woman who didn't want revenge, but truth. Since its release, it has sold more than 40,000 copies. It has been translated into English and French. He had been quoted in international forums and profiled on television programs. But more than sales or accolades, Mariana cared about the letters. Every week, dozens of women arrived, reading her words and finding the courage to make decisions they had put off for years. Some were handwritten, others were printed. She read them all. One said, My name is Elena. I'm 61 years old. I've lived in silence for 35. Thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to open the door. Another came from prison. I, too, was an emotional abuser. Your story made me look at myself. I asked for help. Thank you for not being silent, because your voice also confronted me. Mariana folded each letter and kept them in a box with the words, Living Women, written on it by hand. It was her most valuable treasure. That morning, as the tea cooled, Elias came in, his shirt wrinkled and his face sleepy. You forgot to close the window, he said, smiling. I like it when the air comes in unannounced, Mariana replied. Like good things do? He hugged her from behind and kissed her shoulder. Today's your interview, right? At 10 o'clock on national radio. I've been invited to talk about emotional justice and female reconstruction. Millions of people will be listening, and if at least one of them changes their story, it's all worth it. While she was getting dressed, Camilla came down the stairs, and she was wearing her school uniform, but her face was different, the skin of a young woman who was no longer a child, but still didn't fully recognize herself as a woman. Are you ready for the dress rehearsal? Mariana asked. Camilla nodded. Yes, the speech is almost finished. I just have to breathe before I speak. Don't cry. Crying is also part of the message, daughter. Just remember who you're speaking to, yourself. Mariana smiled. Camilla was about to graduate. She would be entering university with a full scholarship to study law. She had written an essay on emotional violence in the home and the lack of preventive policies, and it was selected by an international foundation. And the most powerful thing was that she didn't speak from theory, but from the experience of having been a witness, a victim, and ultimately an advocate for her own mother. Sophia, now 8, ran out with her hair loose and a leaf in her hand. Mom, you have to see this. He showed her a drawing. It was a broken house with a woman coming out of it with a suitcase. Surrounding it were hearts, flowers, a sun. Mariana bent down. What is this? What are you? Leaving the sad house to build the other one, the good one. Mariana hugged her daughter. Sophia had given him more understanding in those strokes than he'd received in years. Tomas, now 10 years old and in medical remission, still had checkups every 3 months, but he played, ran, and laughed. He wore a bracelet with the letters MQNC that he had made himself. Mariana once asked him what it meant, and he replied without hesitation, Mom, she never shuts up. That was his crest. Mariana arrived for the radio interview at 10 o'clock sharp. The host, a gray-haired man with a deep voice, offered her water. Before we begin, I want to tell you that your book saved my sister. Mariana nodded, her eyes shining. She hadn't known that saving lives could be done by writing in pajamas. During the interview, she talked about many things. Love without shouting, the economy of care, how a woman can feel like a prisoner in her own home and not have bruises, and how the most dangerous violence is the one you don't see. And what advice would you give to someone who still doesn't dare to come out? The host asked. Don't go out for revenge. Go out to find yourself. Prolonged silence doesn't make you an accomplice, it makes you a reen. Breaking it is the first step to liberating yourself. Hours later, the program was the most watched show of the month. It was shared on social media, went viral among feminist websites, and was even discussed on international television programs. That night, while they were having dinner at home, Mariana received a call. And it was from the Foundation for Us. They wanted to inform her that she had been selected as Woman of the Year for her social work, her impact on vulnerable communities, and her ability to transform pain into collective support. Camilla applauded. Sophia screamed with joy. Tomas danced in the living room. Elias proudly hugged her. How do you feel? He whispered in her ear. Free. 2 weeks later, the award ceremony took place at the Municipal Theater. Mariana walked onto the stage dressed in a dark blue dress, without exaggerated makeup, without jewelry, only a cloth bracelet that silently spelled out never again. She took the microphone. For many years I thought I was a broken woman, but I realized it wasn't me who was broken, but the idea I'd been sold about love. I was told that love meant enduring, that being a good mother meant sacrificing, that remaining silent meant protecting, and I survived believing that. Today I want to say something to all the women who feel they have no way out. They are not alone, they are not crazy, they are not exaggerating, and yes, they do deserve better. Don't settle for emotional crumbs, because when a woman stops keeping quiet, no one can lock her up again. The applause was long, the audience was on its feet. When it was over, Mariana returned home, took off her shoes, sat on her bed, and thought about her father, about that letter she had read so many times, about her childhood, her adolescence, about the Mariana who dreamed of owning a bakery and ended up cooking to survive, about the woman who loved a man who reduced her, about the mother who almost gave up, and about everything that came after. The next day, she got up early, dressed in simple clothes, and went out alone. As she walked 3 blocks to her old house, the one where it all began, where she lived for more than 15 years. It was abandoned, the windows boarded up, the yard overgrown, the paint peeling off the walls. She took a piece of paper out of her bag and taped it to the door. She remained silent for a few seconds, taking a deep breath. Then she turned and walked forward with a firm stride. On the door was written, "Here died a broken woman and born one who will never be silent again." The end. What did you think of this story? There are many people like Mariana who live silent battles every day. Our hope is that her voice resonated within you as well. If this story touched your heart, share it. Make more people feel supported. Be part of the change. Tell us in the comments what you would have done in her place. What city are you watching from? Reading you makes us feel closer to you. And if you haven't already, give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Every gesture you make is a sign that these stories must continue to be told. Don't leave yet. Our next heartwarming story is already appearing on your screen. Click on any of them and continue exploring this universe of moving and necessary true stories. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. We send you a big hug wherever you are. See you next time.